Good morning and hello, welcome to the Southern Airs, and I'm up north in an industrial estate in Sunderland. That is a Nissan factory, but I'm not here to see Nissans. Oh no, as you can probably tell by the title, there is an aviation museum up here, and I'm going to take you around it because I've been meaning to visit this aviation museum for quite a while, so hopefully you'll enjoy it, so stick around. I am Jett from McDowell, at your service. I bring you to the North East Land, Sea, Air Museum, and there's quite a variety of planes in this small collection. Some are in worse state than others because they're under restoration. Others are fully restored, they've been there for years, but I'm looking forward to showing you around some of the different aeroplanes here. And I want to start with something very, very cool. This is the last surviving Trident 1C. This used to fly for British European Airlines and British Airways until the 1980s, when BA retired the Tridents in favour of what would become the backbone of their super shuttle fleet, the Boeing 757, a type that's also now being retired by BA, and they now use the Airbus A320neo family. But this one, after spending 20 years on a fire dump at Teesside Airport, has now been brought here and restored. And it looks like they're trying to restore the whole plane. The wings are just over here at the back of the plane. Don't know what they're doing about the tail section. But yeah, you can go inside this Trident sometimes, but unfortunately today it is shut. But it's the only Trident in the UK preserved in North East Airlines livery, which was one of the 4 airlines that ended up merging into what was to become the modern British Airways we know today. Now, I don't know if you can see it clearly on my camera, but we have an arrival going into Newcastle Airport up there. If I can get it to focus. No, he's in the clouds now. But how cool is that? Oh, he's back again. Yeah, but how cool is that? Seeing arriving aeroplanes into Newcastle Airport from an aviation museum. Here we have an English Electric Canberra. Electric Canberra. This was the Jett aircraft that replaced the de Havilland Mosquito, the World War II era aircraft. See the Avro Vulcan behind, but we'll get around to that in a minute. A little bit of info on this particular Canberra right here if you want to pause and read that. Hopefully it's legible. But I think this was probably mainly used as a training aircraft by the looks of it. Got another Jett over there, but I'm not exactly sure what that is over here on the left. If someone could tell us in the comments, that'd be great. I'm going to go around the Canberra to get the rear end. Go, and there's the rear end of the Canberra. And of course, do I need to give this aeroplane an introduction? The airplane that defined the V-Force, the symbol of victory over the Falklands War. This is an Avro Vulcan. I'll get a bit more information on this bird in a moment. I'm going to try and get up a bit closer to it. See, it's at the end of the... There's another arrival just up there. Looks like an Airbus. EasyJet. Yeah, so the Vulcan's here in the corner overlooking the Canberra, the North East Trident, and that rather sorry looking Jett Provost, but damn, just look at that. If I just zoom in. Right, so the Avro Vulcan you see behind me, in all its glory, is XL319. The tail section seems to be in a bit of a state at the minute, but again, they could have taken parts off to do work on it. The engines are all caged up. They've got like anti-bird cages. They're probably empty in there. There's probably no engines, but probably to stop wildlife from trying to sneak in there. Now, unlike the one the Coventry Aviation Museum we went to, this Vulcan I don't think is open to the public inside. But it's kind of cool that it's outside, you can get up close and personal, though I have to admit it does need a bit of a clean, probably a bit of a repaint. But again, volunteers in some of these museums, sometimes it just takes time to get around to all these. But the fact that they've had this aeroplane for several decades here outside in their collection, you know, to allow people to come up and admire this beast is pretty outstanding. Okay, so I just found this plaque and it's got a bit of information on the Vulcan B2 outside, XL319. There's the information on this particular aeroplane. Flew for the 617 Squadron, known for the Dam Busters, and it was retired 1982, and it was the first Avro Vulcan to be preserved in the UK. Okay, so I've just been talking to the the Jett Provost here, and we think it's a good idea that I take you see these exhibits that are actually located in the hangars, and potentially some of the stuff that's under restoration. Alright. I was saying about the tail section of the Trident earlier. I've actually just found it. The tail section's here behind the Provost. All painted up, looks like they're doing some work on it. Hopefully it will go on to the Trident eventually. We'll have a nice complete Trident 1C here at this museum. But until then, we're just going to have to be patient. Okay, now this is super cool. This is the cockpit dashboard recovered from a Trident. In fact, it came from this very Trident here. From Victor Foxtrot Golf. A Trident 2E. Of course, the Trident's cockpit looks very different to the A320 that flew me up here earlier this morning. Oh, this is super cool. This is the cockpit section of a de Havilland Comet. This is painted up to look like its first owner, Egypt Air. However, I think this plane also flew for Dan Air. I'm just going to have a look now at the thing down here. There you go. Zoom in. Want to have a read of that. And there's a bit of history on this particular aeroplane. So obviously it flew for Egypt Air, as I said. And it ended up with Dan Air for a bit. And the museum has had the nose section since 1989. And just to the left, as you can see here, we have a Gill Air Short Brothers 360, a very unique and interesting turboprop regional aircraft. Some seats here from inside the plane. But yeah, the 360 is still in use for cargo operations, and it is often used as a ideal plane for doing parachute jumps. Okay, so it looks like you can actually go inside this Gill Air Short Brothers 360, so I say we go inside and have a quick gander. Again, some information on this aeroplane. So the museum's had this aircraft since 1993, after it was written off in a landing accident at Newcastle Airport. Well, I suppose that the plane was never going to fly again. I suppose it beats scrapping it. Let's get inside. Whoa. Okay, that was scary. Things started to wobble as I went up. This is inside the Gill 360. You can see it's a 2x1 configuration. Obviously a couple of seats will be taken out to allow visitors in and out. Okay, let's just go have a look at the cockpit. Again, very basic cockpit design. A little bit of, you know, modern tech coming in, but still a long way to go. And these things were actually built in Northern Ireland by the Short Brothers, the same people who built the Short Sandringham and the Short Sunderland flying boat. We've got a nice fighter here. I do believe that's in the livery of the Finnish Air Force. A couple of American Sabres and other jets. Got an Argentine aircraft from the Falklands War over there. And we have some classic British designs. We'll get up close to those a little later though. I'm going to be quite honest with you. This is so damn cool. Honestly, got seat back things on here, which I don't think were much use because These things never did long flights. They were literally puddle jumpers doing small commuter flights. I don't think the Short 360 even had any cabin crews. I don't think... Oh, no, actually, no, I tell a lie. That's the jump seat for a flight attendant right there. So obviously there were crews. So but even then, the service, if there was any, it was probably very basic, like maybe bottles of water, tea or coffee. I can assure you, before I step out of this thing, you do not want to try and join the Mile High Club in here. I've just found this scale model of a Comet 4. It's probably a mock-up BOAC model that was used for training purposes or marketing purposes. As you can see, this is the sort of layout you would have had in the Comet. Back then there was no first economy class, it was all luxurious. The BOAC Comet 4 being the very first jet airliner to complete a transatlantic flight, flying between Heathrow and New York in 1958. And if you watch our video on the de Havilland Museum, not de Havilland Museum, our video on the Imperial War Museum Duxford, we actually go inside the very BOAC Comet 1 that actually flew that very first transatlantic flight, as well as a chance to see what a Comet looks like inside complete. Because there's no way in hell I'm going to be allowed anywhere inside this Comet. And over here we got a Avro Vulcan World War II transporter under heavy restoration. And a few exhibits regarding Ernie Brooks and a couple of micro-light aircraft. And some models, including an Avro Vulcan and a Victor. Red Arrows, displayed by Fulham Nats, the original aircraft used for the Red Arrows. Talk about all-time classics. So here's a very familiar sight to our channel, because we featured this in multiple museum videos. This is the English Electric Lightning. Classic Cold War era fighter from the RAF. This is a Danish Air Force livery Hawker Hunter. Obviously the Hunter was a British design, but various other countries did operate the type, including Denmark. Over here we've got... Now I said this was a Sabre, but I tell a lie, this is actually a Thunderstreak. Again, this one's painted up in the Finnish Air Force colours. And here we've got a USAF early Cold War jet fighter. Obviously we got the de Havilland Vampire and a Gloucester Meteor. Two very iconic Cold War British jets, both in RAF livery. This one's a two-seat trainer. Oh, we got what looks like a Sea Harrier. Harrier jump jet. Yeah, this is a Sea Harrier, it's Royal Navy. And this thing is an FMA Bukhara. And this is one of a handful of these aircraft types that were used during the Falklands War by the Argentine Air Force. And this one actually got captured in the Falklands War because it was left behind at Port Stanley after the Black Buck raids were successful in bombing the runway. So there's 3 of these preserved in the UK, courtesy of us winning the war. And of course, up close and personal, this is the Sea Harrier, or the Harrier jump jet from Hawker Siddeley. Obviously, Sea Harriers and RAF Harriers fighters were used extensively during the Falklands War. They were also used in the subsequent years since, but were all retired basically by 2011. So it's actually kind of nice to see this Sea Harrier preserved here alongside the Argentine plane that it would have been fighting against during the Falklands War. Back outside, there's a few other exhibits on the home front and life during World War II, but I'll leave that for you to come and have a look at. I'll just focus on the aeroplanes for this video. And here we have a British Hawker Hunter. Basically similar, if not the same, as the Danish one you saw inside, except this one probably could do, as you can see, a lick of paint on the wing. Probably why it's out here, getting ready for some work, because it looks like this has been done quite recently as well. Right, Civil Transport Collection, shall we go in? So in this hangar, it starts off with this exhibit detailing the history of RAF Osworth and what would become later the civilian Sunderland Airport. Obviously Newcastle Airport has become the dominant airport for the North East in England, as well as Teesside. And Sunderland Airport sadly shut down in the 1980s. In fact, the last plane to ever land at Sunderland Airport was the Avro Vulcan that we just saw outside. In fact, it was not only the first Vulcan to be preserved, it was the last airplane to land at Sunderland Airport. And if we come here, that's what the Aviation Museum looked like in its early days. And you've probably seen most of those airplanes up here in the hangars that I've just shown you. Got a couple of light airplanes in here, but this hangar is mainly used for cars and ground vehicles. So I say we should have a little dive in. So this is a twin set tram that was used in Blackpool for 48 years, from 1960 to 2008. And we can go inside it. So let's go inside, shall we? Wow, very retro in here, I must say. Well, to be honest, tram designs probably haven't changed that much in 40 odd years. Oh, there's a route map up here. Let's go have a look. So that is the route map of what I assume is the Fleetwood line. Very nice. Apparently Blackpool still has a vintage tram line, and there's the driver's bit just over there, so we'll get a nice close-up look at that in just a moment. Yeah, imagine how many millions and millions of people rode in trams like this, you know, on their daily commutes to work, you know. How many stories this twin set could tell. It's kind of cool. A few other vehicles. Oh, there's another tram over here. If I just come around here, there's a tram just outside the window. I'll try and get a better shot of it with me not filming through the front lens. Hold on. There we go. I'm guessing this one's a restoration job because it looks like it's in a bit of a poor state. Apparently it's a Krefeld 412. I'm not big on trams and stuff like that, but if someone could fill me in the comments about that particular type of tram, that would be much appreciated. This is where the magic happens, on the tram. Very basic indeed. But again, like I said, these were built in the 1960s before modern computer technology took over. How many updates must these trams have gone through in those 48 years? Because to think, when you first started travelling on these trams, you could, you know, have smoked in these, for example, but obviously that would have changed about the 1980s and 90s. You know, obviously you had the introduction of decimalisation, you had conductors probably on these things, making sure everyone was keeping law and order. Don't know if conductors are things you see regularly on trams these days, although there aren't many cities in the UK that still use trams. They are starting to make a slow comeback though. And of course, just coming to the back of this hangar, we have a pair of double-decker buses and another tram. So we've got the shiny black double-decker bus here, and this slightly more retro one here. I assume they're both under restoration. This yellow tram appears to be holding a load of spare parts for the yellow and purple ones up here. Although by the looks of it, this twin car, these ones, I think from what I've seen on another plaque here, is that they're going to paint them in their original green and white livery eventually when it comes around to restoring them. So it's kind of nice to see them in this purple and yellow livery, because by the looks of it, this isn't going to last much longer. Right, I'm back outside. It looks like there's some restoration hangars over here, so I'm going to go and have a look inside these two and see what's in there. Hopefully I can share what's in there, but we'll have to wait and see, so bear with me. I don't know if there's planes in there, I don't know if there's cars, buses. Ooh. Got a World War II turret, like gun hut thing here. And obviously over here we've got what looks like an old rescue boat as well. I believe we forgot to film that earlier. Okay, let's see what's inside, shall we? So in the Romney building number 2, this appears to be mostly mini tanks, armoured vehicles, anti-aircraft guns, and this one little army helicopter. Very nice. So this is a howitzer from Vickers Armstrong, same people who made the Wellington. Got a few more World War II period anti-aircraft and just general large guns. We got a Willys Jeep. This was like one of the standard vehicles of World War to. Obviously you could just mount a machine gun on the end and then this thing would drive around. We got an Austin Ascot, if I've got that right. It's just a normal truck. Got a mini tank there. Keep thinking of Lieutenant Gruber from A Lower Load, looking at little tanks like that. God, that show is infectious. And we got some tanks. Speaking of tanks, should we do a visit to the Bovington Tank Museum at some point? It is local. And this is Romney Building number 1. Let's go inside and see what awaits. And in this hangar, we have a Westland Whirlwind, a Westland Dragonfly, a Sea Venom, and a boat. I'm assuming that's a replica and like a large model rather than an actual boat, but I could be wrong. So this is the last building and the last hangar, and what are we greeted by as we walk through the door? Nice. Probably one of the newest RAF planes you'll ever see in a museum in this country. A Panavio Tornado, and oh look, there's a BAE Hawk as well. And it looks like Hawk Hurricane under restoration. There you go, there's a replica 1916 bullet getting just displayed up there. It's kind of funny, you got that 1916 era Royal Flying Corps plane, and right here underneath it you have the Panavio Tornado, a plane that was only retired about 5 or 6 years before I shot this video. Okay, I'm just going to have a quick hot drink before I leave, so hope this works. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I think I'm going to have a flat white. Alright, let's enjoy a well-earned coffee break. Alright, I've just spent 90 minutes at this museum. It's not a big museum by any means, but wow, has this place got a pretty impressive civilian and military collection of aeroplanes. And it's also got a pretty nice little additional collection of ground vehicles and sea vehicles. But here I am back in front of the Northeastern Trident 1 to wrap this video up. So all that's left to say is thank you for watching the vlog, safe travels my friends, and I'll see you in the next one, hopefully with some of the other Southern Airs.